Our next guest is former Vancouver Canuck and TSN hockey analyst, the one and only Frank Corrado. How we doing?
Not bad. Not bad. Making other arrangements now that Cap Friendly is gone, but I know there's going to be other people that step up into the space and it's all going to be good. It's like, do you guys remember, did you watch Jersey Shore back in the day at all?
Did I ever? Beat
Okay.
up the beat? GTF?
So,
Beat that beat.
Do you remember when there was a whole thing? It's like, if she doesn't know this, she's too young for you, bro. Remember that? Like, if she doesn't know, I don't know, make a reference from the early 2000s. Right. She's too young for you, right? If she doesn't know Cap Geek, she's too young for you.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people have forgotten that Cap Geek, I mean, as far as I know, was the original, and Cap Geek ceased to exist, and then we moved on to Cap Friendly. Was there something before that, Blake? Please help me out.
You're showing your age now. Yes. You're also showing the fact that you were a hockey player.
Yeah. When I was looking up Frankie Corrado's initial cap hit as a player, I was going to NHLnumbers.com.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. Then you're too young for me, Frankie.
She's too young for you, bro.
And if you type NHLnumbers.com into your browser, it takes you to Puckpedia.
I just learned that.
Oh.
Yeah.
He bought the domain. Oh, nice. Good.
There we go.
NHL Numbers got bought. Cap Geek, sadly, the publisher passed away at a very young age from cancer. Puckpedia started about 6 years ago. I'm not sure when Cap Friendly started, but how about the league having an icy relationship with Cap Friendly, Frank? Like they don't want that information out there.
Yeah.
They don't want people talking about salaries and looking at buyouts and things of that. I don't know. Blake and I are trying to make sense of that from a marketing standpoint, because like your hardest core fans are on this site, and they're on that site a lot.
Yeah.
When looking at clubs.
How often would you be on that site in a week? Like, I'm probably on that site a dozen times a week, maybe. Just got to look this up. I don't know, curiosity at times. It was such a great resource.
I have a Cap Friendly and a Puckpedia tab up at all times.
Yeah.
When we're doing at all times.
Yeah.
Because like years and years ago, it became clear to me that I needed a quick view reference of that pretty much every show. So just leave those windows up and make it a part.
Well, the good thing that both of them have done now is they've attached stats. So now you don't need to go to HockeyDB or Hockey Reference or NHL.com and have a salary cap site. Now it's all streamlined. Like, why would you just go and see a stats page when it's there under the cap as well, and you get the context of what that person is doing for the team?
Take it one step further. Cap Friendly had even implemented a CY at the year that it was a contract year. I think it might be a premium feature. But so if you go back, you can say, oh, so-and-so was point per game in their contract year. And then the next year they dropped off, or, it's kind of cool, all the different features that they built. And I can see why an NHL team would want to have that in-house, because now you not only have your own stuff, you have everyone else's stuff. And it's so complex, and they built out the contract comparable tool, which is really cool. Like, I used that a lot last year when we were doing our Free Agent Frenzy show, where, we're trying to predict what, AAVs are going to be. And I think there's a few analytics companies that do such a great job of these projections, but they're more, they're data based on the season and the number. And sometimes you do need to have that human element to it, where you can go look at, so-and-so signed this deal in 2021 with similar numbers. And so that means, this is probably what it's going to come in at. There's so many different cool features that they built out. And you know what, there's more space for someone else to grab that slice of the pie. And that's kind of the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah. And we suspect Puckpedia will pick up a big slice of the pie. Answer me this, Frank, because Blake and I have been chatting about this, and we certainly hear from listeners on this. Did the salary cap and team building by jigsaw puzzle, did that enhance the interest in the league for you? And of course, in your case, we're going back to when you were a kid and then an NHL player. Or would you rather it just wasn't there and we could just simply talk about hockey players, their pluses and minuses?
Oh, 100% the latter.
Really?
Yeah, I think when I was a young hockey fan, I didn't want to have to talk about salary cap. I didn't want to have a price tag attached with a player. And yeah, it's not an even playing field because not all these organizations are built the same financially. But from a fan's point of view, it's like I hated that we had to spoil having a certain player because they made too much money. It was I don't know, and you know what? I guess it maybe has forced general managers to be sharper. Although there's still a lot of GMs that make a lot of elementary mistakes. It seems like, but for me, I was always of the mindset like if we didn't have this, we wouldn't have to be critical about player X because he makes $1 million too much. Like
Yeah.
sometimes that's literally what it came down to. And it felt so silly that we were having those conversations. The only thing I will defend this, and someone out in Pittsburgh, a writer out in Pittsburgh, he tweeted out a full newspaper page with some. I think you guys may have seen this. It's like all the salaries. It would have been sometime in the 90s, and all the salaries of all these players, and it was front page stuff. And I thought to myself, okay, if you were drafted by a team that doesn't have any money, that's a small market team, and they can only pay you so much, but you're as good as the player that got drafted to the team that has a lot of money, like that sucks. You know,
Yeah.
like you deserve more of your slice of the pie because you're that team's equivalent. So I will say, like having this hard cap, if I were to ever defend it in any way, this is probably the only way I would, is so that your team equivalent can give you more of your dollar value, what you should get compared to the guy who got drafted to the big market team who has a lot of money. So you're not a victim of getting drafted by a small market team as a player. So that's the, I guess, my defense, but I think that might be all I have.
Imagine, okay, as we pivot a little bit here, imagine you're JT Miller, you're signed, seal, deliver. You don't have to worry about, a contract negotiation for any time, maybe ever again. Do you think JT Miller's going on to Puckpedia now and going, okay, how much money does our GM have to deal with? Like, as you monitor,
Everyone's doing that.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think players are intimate with the salary cap of their team and how much room and what are they going to do in free agency? How much, like, because they want the team to be better, but they also know I would show the curiosity if I'm a player of saying, okay, but is it even possible for us to get better? What are the parameters that I'm dealing with here that they're dealing?
I've seen guys like, we're sitting on the bus or we're sitting at dinner and you're having conversations about players and someone goes on Cap Friendly and the first thing out of their mouth would be like, holy crap, this guy makes that much money. And it's not someone on your team, it's someone on another team, but you're saying like, holy, this guy stinks. Like he's legitimately stealing money. Like, and look in comparison to other players. Like I've full on had those conversations with guys, which is hilarious. And then, from a newbie point of view, if you're a rookie in the league and you're just starting to realize how much some guys clear every 2 weeks who are on like these big salaries, then you grab your calculator on your phone that all your teachers told you wouldn't walk around with for the rest of your life. And then you do the prorated, how much they make per day, how much they make every 2 weeks. And you go, I can't fathom that this person's paycheck every 2 weeks looks like that. Like I've had those conversations too, which is they're both outrageous.
And think of it like now it's just a series of numbers in a bank account. But back in the day, you actually had a check, a piece of paper with that number on it that you had to go to the bank and like.
You want to hear something? My first year in Utica, my first year in Utica, they gave us the option: do you want direct deposit or do you want check? And there was a guy on the team that was like, "No, I want the check. I want the physical check." Or like, why? Like, I don't know, just personal preference. I want to see that thing. I want to go cash it. Like, it could just go. You could skip.
You like the activity of getting the check.
I want you to add an errand to my day. Like what?
Yeah. Like what if these things pile up and you forget or you're busy? I guess you wouldn't forget, but I don't know. Just
No, but hey,
Happy Gilmore with the big checks.
As guys way back in the day in the CFL would tell you, sometimes it's a race to the bank to get that thing cleared when there's kind of dodgy ownership. So the guy with the check He's getting paid first, Frankie, before all that direct deposit information.
That's a KHL thing. That's a KHL. Right. You make sure
on the Coyotes.
Yeah. You run that thing to whatever bank you got.
Exactly. You do not walk, you run to the nearest financial institution and get that thing deposited.
Every once in a while, like when you'd get called up or you'd get sent down or whatever, like there's just certain things where you get like reimbursement checks for. And dude, I'm telling you, you know how quickly I would go deposit those things? It's nothing to do with the organization. It's just like, I'll forget about this. And there's a couple $100 there. Like I just have to do it right away. Always.
Let me ask you our poll question. Should the Canucks take a big swing at one of the bigger ticket free agents here? Guentzel, Reinhart. What would you think of something like that?
Well, Jake Guentzel would make a lot of sense just because of the familiarity with all the staff involved and the fact that you probably would like to have an elite winger playing with your elite centerman in EP40. So that makes a lot of sense for me. And the thing is, the Canucks have cap space. Like if they want to prioritize that, they can. It's going to be interesting to see what they weigh more as far as how they want to allocate this money. But they do have money to work with. Of course, they're going to have to be cognizant of the Ekman Larson money, and there's a few other moving parts, I guess. But yeah, like why wouldn't you try and add, if you can, if you're in the market for that, someone you're familiar with that you think might be a good fit with your top line centerman?
They've got a lot of holes, as we saw. Anything but a perfect performance over the two playoff rounds. So it kind of shows you exactly what you need going forward. Is there logic, though, to say rather than try to fit the perfect size puzzle piece into that puzzle, why not get a player that just way over achieves what you need and then try to fill the other pieces either during the year or next summer and just aim for a Stanley Cup in a couple of years' time?
I guess, okay, so are you saying like you'd be spending a lot of money and you'd kind of throw a lot of your eggs into this basket and then say, we'll take our chances elsewhere?
Yes.
I think, yeah, like, okay, so I think in theory it sounds good. And now you take a look at teams that have done that. Like Toronto's allocated tons of money in 4 or 5 guys, never works. And they were the victims of a flat cap. It's not going to be that anymore. It's 88 next year. It's probably going to be 92 the year after. Hopefully nothing derails that. So, you will have a little more wiggle room. It's just the balanced team seems to do really well right now. Like Florida's a very balanced team. And the thing about Florida, anyone could have had any of those players. It wasn't, these weren't big secrets that were out there with all these guys. So I guess maybe to your point, it's like, yes, you can spend a lot of money on that one guy, and then you can take your chances. Just make sure the guy that you spend the money on actually works out for you in bigger moments in the playoffs, which Jake Guentzel has been a very, very strong playoff performer his entire career. And the ones that you're going to take your chances on lower in the lineup, like do your due diligence and make sure they actually work, because there's a lot of teams, and it's not just Toronto, that have allocated a lot of money, front loaded kind of rosters. And then the ones lower in the lineup, when really push comes to shove, they don't get a lot from that. And Edmonton's kind of going through that right now, I think, if you've watched the finals, where there's some of those guys that you're like, okay, they need a little more from you. And it's not even just the scoring. It's like they need you to not cough up a puck at the blue line. Right. They need you to not take a bad penalty. And some of those guys are struggling with that.
Right. So if we take a step back from the big ticket guys and we look at this free agent winger class, Frankie, I want to ask you about 3 names. Talk to me about Teravainen in Carolina and whether what kind of fit you think he would be with the Canucks' existing centerman in top 6.
Okay, so Teravainen, if I'm looking at what his percentage of the cap is going to be and like what a projected AAV might be, like I'm thinking he's a $5 to $5.5 million player. He's going to take, roughly 6% of your cap. I think he's a very versatile player. He adds an element of skill. He adds an element of trust, where he can play on the penalty kill. He can play on the power play, and he can play kind of higher and lower in your lineup. I like him as a player, but I kind of see that's Like that's where he's going to fall in, I think. Like I think he's a $5 million player. And then, as far as his age, I'd have to take a look at
He's
how
29.
old he is. He's 29. So then you got to, is it a 4-year deal like that? I would be comfortable with that. I don't think I don't know. I don't know who's lining up to give him 7.
AFP has got him at a 4-year deal at $5.2 million. So
right where Frank is.
Right where, yeah, exactly. Same question, Jake DeBrusk.
DeBrusk is an interesting one because when he really is on, he scores a lot. There's an edge to his game. And I think Boston has really wanted that edge to be more present in his game. But there's no doubt, like with the way he's built, the way he can move, like he can add something to your lineup. And he's been like, I don't know why I just have visions of Jake DeBrusk burying the Leafs in the playoffs. Maybe he has scored a lot on them at times in the playoffs, but there's another guy who probably falls into that same kind of price range. Like he's probably a 4.75 to 5.3 type player, and like a little younger, but I would still probably not want to. Like I wouldn't want to give him too much on term. Like it's probably still into that 3 to 5 year range.
AFP is 5 at 5.8 for DeBrusk.
So higher, wow.
So a little higher.
That is, you know what, that is high because I'm kind of thinking with DeBrusk, like I think Bertuzzi's in that same category, right? Like he's low 5s. I don't know. Maybe he does get it. Maybe a team sees a lot more potential in him. But maybe I don't know. I kind of it's close.
Well, reputationally, he's left people wanting at times. So Jake DeBrusk,
I believe so. But I think there's a lot of skill there. Like he's a good player for sure.
Same question on Victor Arvidsson.
Victor Arvidsson, just more of like an energy kind of guy, right? Like, I mean, he didn't play much this year. I think he was hurt a lot. He's 31 years old. And he's, he was making 4.25 this year, I think. So for Arvidsson, like, I'm not like, I don't know how much more offense there would be there. I think with Arvidsson, you probably have that type of player at a lesser cap hit already on your roster. Like you have the energy bug, hard worker guy. You got the guy that gets in on the forecheck. Like I think you can replicate what he does really well with some guys who don't make 4.75, let's say. So that's probably, that would be lower on my wish list if I were the Canucks. I would be prioritizing more a guy like Teravainen if we were talking about that like mid-tier kind of $5 million range players.
And you had Arvidsson read on the number there, 4.75 over 3 years, which is what
you forget that he was a point getter earlier in his career. It's just been a little bit harder to come by later in injuries, obviously.
Okay, he's a pain though. He is a pain. Like when he plays his best, he's a pain in the ass to play against. But I just think you can be a pain in the ass at $1.5 million and not close to $5 million.
Lastly, on the Cup Final, do you think Draisaitl deserved a suspension for that hit? And do you see a route back into this for the Edmonton Oilers?
So the thing is with that elbow, if that's a chicken wing elbow that gets up and off his body and hits Barkov in the head in the Stanley Cup Final, I absolutely believe that's a suspension.
That's right.
Because Barkov keeps it into his body, if you really, really slow it down, you can see that he kind of does like get the elbow, but he doesn't leave it off his body. Like he doesn't extend it. Given the magnitude of where we're at in the Stanley Cup Final, I think I'm okay with it not being a suspension. Like would a $5,000 fine make everyone happier? I don't know. Like he got penalized. His team lost the game because they paid the price on that afterwards. So I think the punishment is probably, given the circumstances, it's probably fine. As far as a way back in for the Oilers, I guess my answer to that would be like they're so banged up and so hurt. I don't know how you can overcome the Panthers, who look good and could even probably play a little bit better. I don't know how you're going to overcome that where you're not at 100% capacity. And even if you were at 100% capacity, it was going to be pretty difficult to begin with.
I know they're not scoring goals, but I'm surprised by the quiet, at least I haven't seen it, criticism of Stuart Skinner, because hey, he was great in the conference final, but he was not great versus the Vancouver Canucks, save for one game, big game in Game 6, where they kind of outscored the problem. Even if he wasn't good, they were going to outscore the problem. But his save percentage was dismal versus the Canucks, and has yet to get over whatever 880 in this series as well. I get they haven't scored, but when you know that your goalie's not going either, and he's letting in 3 goals every 18 shots, 19 shots, I mean, that's a tough way to live as a skater as well.
Yeah, the thing with Skinner is I don't think, like, I know I wasn't expecting him to steal games
Right.
against the Panthers. I think for me, like in Game 2, Skinner had a pretty good game. Like, I think that's Skinner. That's kind of who he is. That's a decent game. I don't feel like it was super deflating from him. I think if his team managed to find a little more offense, you could say that he gave them a chance. They just were, they had nothing going. Florida played more to their identity as far as being a stout defensive team. So I don't feel like there should be more criticism for Skinner. I don't even feel like there should be a ton of criticism on the Oilers and the effort level and the compete level, because like if you watch Evander Kane try and skate right now, like he can't move. Like he can't cross over on one side. If you go back and watch the goal that Mikkola scores off the rush, Kane is in on the forecheck, and as he's going around the net, he can't cross over with his right foot over his left. So he takes these like weird little strides. And by that time, Mikkola has like opened up a whole zone's worth of space and jumps in the rush. And Ryan McLeod was there too, but he was on the other side of the ice, so he couldn't get back. And I'm watching it over and over again. I'm like, that's not an effort thing. That's not a will thing. That's just a guy who like really can't move, like playing injured, like playing beyond hurt. And then Darnell Nurse wanting to sit there all game when he's hurt, and he plays one shift, and you watch that shift, you're like, he didn't move at all. He can't be out there. Like they're just really banged up. It's hard. They're kind of what Florida maybe was last year against Vegas, just walking wounded.
Would a sweep surprise you at this point?
A sweep wouldn't surprise me, but I'm not going to go out there and declare a sweep. No, I think
they find a way to get one.
Got to get one on home ice.
Gosh, as neutrals, Edmonton really needs to win Game 3.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the
drama.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because then it's a death march, even if they do win a game.
Because teams do come back from 3-1. So even if they got Game 3 but lost Game 4, I'm still interested in Game 5. So
yeah. Because it'd be a hell of a thing to blow a 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Final, right, Frank?
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, I see the history lesson. I heard the history lesson already out there. I think it's different circumstances, but like at home, maybe you get the matchup you want. Maybe Barkov isn't 100%. Like maybe McDavid has a massive night, like the type of legendary night that he can have. I don't know, but
he's due. He's due.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you get him away from Barkov a little bit. Let me ask you guys this. So we're sitting there, we're watching the game, and Darren Dreger goes, do we underrate Barkov? Like he said something like that. Like, is Barkov going to be higher on our list? Like, is he a top 5 player in the NHL? And I thought about this, and I'm like, we always put Barkov in this, top 10, top 12, maybe 15 players in the NHL. And every year, the NHLPA players poll comes out, and it's who's the most underrated player? Sasha Barkov.
Yeah.
And now watching this happen in real time, like maybe and everyone freaks out. Oh, he's not underrated. We know he's a star, yada, yada, yada. Maybe the players are actually trying to tell us something. Maybe they're trying to tell us, no, you guys, you're still underrating him. Because unless you have him in the McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, Draisaitl category, then he is underrated. Maybe he's a top 5 player.
I was just going to say, I sketch out 4 names just reflexively. McDavid, Draisaitl, McKinnon, and Makar.
Mm-hmm.
Could I have Sasha Barkov as the 5th best player? Yeah, he's
well. Let me ask you this:
conversation.
If Patrice Bergeron is 30 years old in this league right now, are you putting him fifth? Because like, is that what we're talking about? Maybe a slightly more offensive version of Patrice Bergeron.
I'm thinking like a more offensive, more maybe I don't know. Like yeah,
because
I don't know. Like maybe they're trying to tell us something.
Every team fell over themselves, with Patrice Bergeron just because he was so complete. And are we seeing another version of that with Barkov? Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe. It's interesting though.
Mm-hmm.
Always interesting with you, Frank Corrado.
Just got to tell you guys something before we leave.
Sure.
So I'm up in my this office up here, and I'm looking outside. Like this view is outside, and I see some people canvassing on the street right now.
Oh boy.
And I swear to God, if one of these people rings my doorbell, I'm gonna snap.
What's it for? Do you think it's a gutter?
I don't know. They're wearing like the same color shirts. They have like the name tags on.
Yeah.
Is there an election on in Ontario, or is this professional services?
There's always an election, no? Like they're always campaigning for something.
Oh, endure, sir. Endure. Door-to-door salesman.
We'll see you back here at our rally next Wednesday, Frank. Thanks for this.
See you guys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.